Today on Crafty Brewers.
I just don't see how you lose in any part of this.
Correct.
I just don't see how you lose by saying we're welcoming people to come in and have beer with us.
Now, this is a secret that, I know this is going to go out to the world, but I'm kind of being Oz behind the curtain. I'm going to open up the curtain here. Big reveal here.
There are weird things that happen in beer all the time. If you get to know them locally, like your neighborhood brewery, they're going to start to show you some cool stuff, cool behind-the-scenes things.
This is the best post-credit sequence since the Avengers.
Well, but, this is stuff that we don't really, nobody really talks about the ideas of the things that we had to go through.
I, keep telling them, we had a whole themed idea for beers. No one will steal this or I'll sue them.
Wow.
I have strict time limits, and you are exempt from all of it.
After Charlotte pours herself another combo.
Which it is so good.
It is really so good.
I'm going to pour myself one in a second.
I made eye contact with you, and I was like, no, I'm pouring this while we're talking.
I like that you squeeze some cans. I almost expected you to just toss them over your shoulder. Nope. Welcome to Crafty Brewers, Tales Behind Craft Beer. It is the podcast that will increase your enjoyment and appreciation of craft beer and the people who make it. If you weren't aware, and maybe you weren't, March is International Women's History Month. So, in honor of that, we have returned to the scene of one of our previous episodes, female-owned ERIS Brewery and Cider House in Chicago, for a special conversation about the Vibes Beer Project with some of the ladies involved. My guests are Charolette Converse, she's the hospitality and event manager for Solemn Brewery, and Michelle Foik, co-owner of ERIS Brewery and Cider House. I'm beer drinker and now, yes, fans, cider drinker, Brian Noonan. All my opinions are strictly my own for good reason. Behind the cameras, our executive producer, Cody Goff, who is popping a cider as well. Cody, why are you excited about this episode?
I'm excited about this episode because we're talking about an organized program for women in craft beer, a very highly organized one. It's awesome. Dozens of breweries, even more women than dozens across several states are getting involved. This project is only getting bigger, so it could be nationwide someday. Who knows? You heard it here first. We also have heard a lot about where men come from when they get into brewing. Where do women brewers come from? It's like, where do fairies come from? That's a weird question, but we'll still find out. And also, are you allowed to mix beer and cider? You're going to learn how to do that. It's going to be crazy.
This is exciting because it is International Women's History Month. I, of course, love international women and their history, and so I thought this was a very exciting thing that Michelle actually, when we recorded the ERIS episode, you suggested we get a hold of Charlotte because there was this Vibes Beer Project. And let's start with the easy one, Charlotte. First of all, thank you for being here. Thank you for being here, Michelle.
Of course.
What is the Vibes Beer Project?
Vibes is about community. It's about women coming together, supporting each other, educating each other, and being on the same page as far as we're all in this as a group, and we're going to make cool shit together, and we're going to have cool stuff happening. So really, Vibes just started as a way of me taking a look and seeing what the women in this industry have done for me, Michelle included, and how we could pay that forward. And it went from there.
So, we've all heard, or most people in the beer world have heard of the Pink Boots Society, and that's another female program. How is Vibes similar and different from that?
Yeah, Pink Boots is great. Pink Boots is a national organization that supports women in beer. They're a little more, you have to have a certain percentage of your income has to come from working in craft beer, whereas Vibes is a little bit more inclusive as far as, let's say you work at a bottle shop one day a week, but you sell our beer or you sell our cider.
Okay.
But you want to know more. And let's say that you work at a podcast.
Yeah.
Because we've got a few of those gals.
Sure.
Or you have a beer blog because you support all of our beers, all of our ciders. These are just women supporting the industry in general. And we wanted to invite them into our space to teach them about how to make a beer, but not just how to make a beer, but network and meet other women in their space so that they can go to any spot in Chicagoland and they'll probably know someone there now.
Yeah. Now, Michelle, how did you get involved with Charolette and the whole project?
I got involved about 2 years ago. So Charlotte was talking about the Vibes Project, and it was probably the most organized thing I've ever been to, which was totally unorganized. That's why ERIS fit in perfectly, because my background has been like, oh my goodness, I think we're looking at 25 years in the beer industry. And when I was coming up through that time, I was a lot younger. And for me, working at Goose Island, working at Revolution was a lot of fun and ability to get in, but I was also part of the boys club because there just wasn't a lot of women involved. If women are involved at all in beer, it was under marketing and sales. To have women working in as a GM or having a woman work as a cellarman or a brewmaster, all these very masculine names now that we give them that I think about that for a hot second.
Yeah.
But it's always been a dominated industry with men who had passion for brewing and passion for being in the craft beer scene. I think for me, seeing women enjoy a really nice glass of traditional beer, whether that be a traditional IPA or an amber or something like a Hefeweizen, was rare 25 years ago. I know it doesn't sound very long, but 25 years ago, it was like, can I get a Bud Light? Can I get a cocktail? Can I get a wine?
Right.
And throughout those years, it finally came up to a point where women were like, oh no, I really want to learn about this. I want to be an expert too. But in the industry itself, Charlotte just kind of became a shining star because she started being an organizer.
Okay.
So even though I might have been in the industry, I didn't organize the way she organized, and she brought all these people together. And we're not even just talking about women. It's also about transgender, binary, and people that identify as women.
It's a safe space.
Totally a safe space. So that's how I learned about it. And I right away was like, Charlotte, you and I need to talk. We need to figure this out. And I really thought, when she's like, I really love you to be there, I was like, I'm so excited.
Yeah. Michelle's been a day one supporter for sure.
Totally.
Why is a program like this? You talked about paying homage to the women who come before you that have helped you out and stuff. Why is that so important, especially in the current day and age? It seemed like it would be more important for women to band together, like you're doing. Was it an easy sell to Solemn Oath?
Oh yeah, I think that's the cool thing is I've had this project in the back of my head for a long time. I've been in beer for about 9.5 years. It's always been something I want to do, something I kind of soft pitched, but Solemn from day one said yes. A lot of credit goes to John Barley for sure, who just has given me free reign on this.
Nice.
Whatever you want to do, however you want to do it, let's go with it, and that's been awesome. But really, it was like, hey, I just want people to feel confident when they come into their job or confident when they come into our space. So really, it's like talking about beer and cider and fermented beverages and being a woman who can come in by yourself and feel okay and know that you're in a welcomed, safe space is wildly important because they, turns out, are wonderful consumers of these beverages, right?
Sure.
So why are we not doing more to make them feel welcome in our space all the time?
So you mentioned the educational part, and obviously, and we're going to get to it, you brew a beer and you make a cider, all as part of this project. Is it strictly education? Is it networking? What, do you have meetings? What goes on?
Yeah.
What let us in? It's like when little boys want to look in the girls' bathroom because we don't know what's in there. We've heard,
and we're get out of our space.
Yeah, there's couches and stuff in there. That's what we've heard. So what's it like in a typical time at Vibes Beer Project?
Yeah, it's cool because it's so early on. It's in its evolution phase, I feel like. So year one was we had a brew day. We had 100 women show up, or I think it was 85, 90 women show up. And it was awesome. It was really exciting and thrilling. And then year two comes around and we're like, cool. We've been to brew days now. We've done Pink Boots Day. A lot of breweries are doing their own women's brew days, which are awesome. I think that's the thing too, is we're showing breweries, you can do this. You don't need a big group to do this. Just do it in your own space. Whether it's 2 women that work there or 20, do it. So that's cool. And so this year, we turned brew day into... We had some guest speakers. Okay. We had Teresa Surratt, who owns Camp Wandawega, which is one of the best brandings you'll ever see in the Midwest. That woman knows how to run a company. Okay. Abby Tipcombe, who has her own, she was Three Floyds, and then she moved on to distilling for Three Floyds, and now is her own distilling brand, which is amazing. And then Liz Garibay, who runs the Beer Culture Center, which is another facet. So Brew Day was all of that. Plus, we had Yakima Chief and our friends from Haas Hops come in, and they were doing hop blends and hop rubs. So it's like these cool little pieces that you can walk off into if you didn't feel like learning how to brew the actual beer. I think that's important, too, is like my job is not about brewing the beer. My job is selling the beer, selling a tap room, selling a culture and an environment. So let's give women the tools, or maybe just a peek into different facets of where they can take their job if they want to.
And how many women this year? I know you said you had.
Yeah.
And how many breweries are like? As I was looking at all the information, there are a lot of people who contributed or got involved this year.
So last year was Illinois, Chicagoland only, and I think like one or two from Indiana. This year we had over 50 breweries, over 100 women.
Yeah.
It was Wisconsin, Illinois, Michigan, Minnesota, and Indiana involved, which is cool because we've already had people reach out. Top and Goliath want to get on board for next year. Cinderlands out in Pennsylvania want to get involved.
Okay.
Oh,
So
wow.
like it's going to branch out, which is really cool. Yeah, we've got some big brands. It'll evolve. So it was Vibes since 1920 last year, paying homage to the women that created community in Chicago. And this year it is Vibes from the Heartland, so paying homage to the women around the Midwest, because nothing says more Midwest to me than like your neighbor, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And meeting at a dive bar. Like that is the most, our can is very dive bar themed, but it was about your neighbor and your friend and your community. And I think you'll see it branch out even more next year.
Very nice. All right, Michelle, you said you've been in the beer industry around 25 years.
Something like that.
Something like that. What have you seen as far as the timeline of when things started to change from when you first got in to all of a sudden, all right, now women are not just doing them sales and marketing. Now women are in the brew. What was that timeline like?
Oh, goodness. I think so. I was as a general manager working for Goose Island. I was there until 2006. So 6 years of my life was as a general manager. So, and that was a lot of fun being in Wrigleyville, because in Wrigleyville, the general managers were all men, and I was like the only woman on the block. And so a lot of them would come by when there's like a big, massive like win for the Cubs, and they would just double check on me, making sure everything's okay. And then when I finally left that area of Goose Island, I went into sales in about 2007.
Okay.
And that's about the time where I started to meet more women and people that wanted to become more in the brewery industry.
Yeah.
So I think some of our first women brewers, head brewers, were happening around 2007, 2008. I started seeing more cellar people downstairs that were women. I feel like during that time when that big boom really happened, when a lot of craft breweries were trying to open up and making brew pubs, that was the 2007, 2008 era where it was about experience, and women were able to get that experience.
Okay.
And women were more interested in it because it was actually a career that allowed women to be part of if you just needed to be with the experience of like training.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even ERIS in 2015 when we bought the building, we only had one thought, and our thought was Haley Shine, and she was a head brewer of Rock Bottom.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So now you're talking about a chain, Rock Bottom, that actually had a couple of head brewers, if not brewers, they were also assistant brewers, women involved.
Nice.
So I feel like the late 2000s.
Okay.
Or no, what am I saying? The early 2000s.
Early 2000s. When do either of you know about how many women are in the like metro area that are involved in the industry? An estimate, maybe?
No, because I would say that's a big number now, which is really
Good.
cool. It's too big for us to probably keep track of.
Yeah.
I would say on the brewing side, you're probably in the 20s, maybe 30s.
That for head brewers and
Or head
assistant
brewers, maybe
and stuff.
cellarmen, yeah.
I would say the same about, which is a lot.
Which is a lot.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like a big number, but that's a lot.
Yeah.
But I would say as a whole, it's. I mean, you have that many women show up to one brew day, and that's just like one or two representatives from each brewery, right? So there's a lot now, which is really cool.
If you think about it, what was it? Ashley Benson, she's a head brewer.
Yep.
You have Beguile, they have a head brewer.
Mm-hmm.
Abby was a head brewer too, or assistant brewer, but still, like right off the top of my
Spiteful?
head. Yes, Spiteful.
Dovetail. Yeah.
So
Art
we have
history.
a lot. Like if we had to
Our
sit down.
history. Yeah, I mean, that's the cool thing.
Yeah, you wrote it down a pretty
Like,
good list.
Now what's
Yeah.
cool is like, we have to think about, which is
Guinness.
so cool.
Yeah.
Guinness.
Guinness.
That
I mean,
is
Megan
in
and
Toronto.
Guinness was such a big part of this project. They actually, I need to give a little shout out to Guinness. It was very cool. Like, you know, when a big brand like that launches in the city, and in a very, like, I don't want to say cliquey, but like, we all know each other. We're all friends. And also, Chicago's like,
kind of parochial.
Chicago's a gritty city, you know? Like, we're friends here. And a big brand comes into our space, and we all love Guinness, but also you're a big brand.
Yeah, you're a big brand. What are you doing in
Oh
Chicago?
my God.
Right.
They have absolutely crushed it. Like, so Megan Brewing there, she has joined Vibes. She is part of Pink Boots, too.
Nice.
She's incredible. But Ryan is one of their marketing and brand directors
We
there.
just talked to them last month.
Ryan's
great.
awesome.
And Megan was terrific.
So, like, what was
So
cool
was Brian.
is with Vibes this year, my whole point was, like, finding people to help sponsor this project because it's gotten so big for us as a small company to take on. And they sponsored our lunch, and they fed everybody that day. Like, without a blink of an eye, they said yes to feeding 100 women in their space, you know?
That is amazing.
And then they bought, I think more than any other brewery on the list, they bought a ton of the beer to, like, launch at the end of the month. They're going to cap Women's Month on the 27th, which is really cool.
Very nice. We're going to get to the beer and the cider in just a minute because everybody's like, "Ooh, we got to talk about that." Now that you're meeting all these women who are coming in for the Vibes Day, and they're all there, and we've talked to a bunch of brewers, and a lot of the pathways for the guy brewers at least have been the same. Are you finding that with the women who are in the industry too, that they maybe started out, a lot of the guys started as home brewers, and then maybe they went to school and then they got in? Is there a different path or a different interest level for the women who got into the business?
Yeah, what I've experienced is most women start front of house.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're starting off serving, maybe bartending. You're seeing that happening. But there's so many of them that also have been day one supporters of breweries. So they're drinking at the breweries before they even work in them.
Ah, okay.
And that's, I feel like, where they get started. Like, they know the beer. They walk into a space and they're ready for it. And they're passionate and excited about it. And they'll work the beer fests. And then there's some who are like, hey, I want to get in the back of the house, or I want to do this. Some that go into sales. But I think the biggest part of it is, like, they're really, like, willing to expand their options. And I think Vibes, the point of that is, like, showing them there's not just one or two paths. You don't just have to be front of house or back of house.
Yeah.
You can go into sales, you can go into marketing, you can go into the financial department for bigger breweries. There's so many facets of craft beer for them to get into.
We have a great story about that. Casey was one of the participants in the Vibes this year, and she was someone that worked with us as a hostess and now has become a server. And so Casey is looking more into, she works the packaging line all the time. And she recently just reached out to me, and she's like, hey, Michelle, I think I kind of want to make that kind of a path of a goal for my life. And I would love to learn a little bit more about packaging. I enjoy it, but how do you set up the machine? How do you do all these things? So, like, I think finally they're giving the opportunity to figure out what their passion might be, because I do this all the time. Every time I'm at a seminar for women, and everyone's like, what are your challenges as a woman in the beer industry? And I'm like, well, I don't think you should look at it that way, because my biggest thing is how many women are in the beer industry. So I always start out and saying, hey, how many of you here love beer? And women would raise their hand. Mm-hmm. And then I say, how many of you would like to would like cider or love cider? And they're like, all right. My next question is, how many of you would like to open up your own brewery or cider house? And I barely get one or two, you know? So it's not something that has been implagued in our minds forever to be like, oh, I want to own my own brewery. Like, I got that passion from being with Goose Island. Like, I watched other people make their paths, you know? And so for me, it was like, well, I know restaurants and I understand how, you know, beer is made. I know enough to be dangerous, right? But I can't brew a beer and I can't make a cider. Like, true story. But
don't leave us on a brew deck alone.
I know, right? We'd have a lot of fun. But honestly, like, that passion was, though, this industry's fun. Yeah. And if I lead into it and Charlotte leads into it and other women lead into it, maybe we can open up a door that they see that it's a lot more fun than what it is. You know, because I think people are afraid of that only because it's just not my interest. You know? Does that make sense?
It does make sense, sure.
Like, we had a lot of, I mean, it was cool. I feel like some of us that have been doing this for a little while, again, it's not that we're burnt out or anything like that. It's more so like I didn't expect it to be like this. And we were standing in the room looking around at the space and being like, I don't know any of these women.
Right.
And they're young and they're excited and they're so into this. And that was the coolest part. It was like inspiring me that they were inspired. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to put in the manpower behind this. I'm going to do what I can because I know like how important that is and how exciting that is. But also like just opening up the pathway and saying, hey, no matter what, you've got a support system behind you, which is so cool and so rare. To have a built-in support system where, like, when I started my job 9.5 years ago, my first brewer that I worked for, brewer/owner, he said, hey, I want you to, like, you need to meet Michelle Foik because I want you to be like her. She's fucking cool. Like, he just, like, it was so cool. And it was such a weird thing where, like, then I met Michelle and I was like, yeah, she's great. She's wonderful. And our friendship developed out of that. But, like, to say, like, to have men support that too and say, these are women that you would learn from and they are going to teach you things and support you to have this system built in already. Like Vibes is about a built-in system.
Very nice.
It. And the thing is, too, is it's a trade.
Yeah.
That's like, especially now in this climate, college is like so much money for everyone. And I'm not saying that there are colleges that do this program, brewery program or whatever. But there's also trade schools. There's also Siebel. There's also all these other things that like really can provide a cheaper alternative to a passion that you didn't even realize you like.
Exactly.
So I think that like it allows the younger generation to be able to do something that eventually can either make them their own money, whether it's a salary, whether it's their own place, but also start out in a trade where it's like not this pressure of like, oh my God, I got to have generals, I got to do this, I got to do this, and I got to do a 4-year program. So I think a lot of times we forget about that because the climate's so different right now. So I don't know. Like, I feel like it's a good trade to get into.
Last thing before we break, and then we're going to come back and talk about and sample Vibes for the Heartland and Vibes from the Orchard. Those are the beer and the cider that Vibes Beer Project is doing. Listening to you two ladies, it sounds like things are progressing in the right direction for women in craft beer. But where would you like to see it go next? What's the next big hurdle that craft beer needs to overcome to make it more inclusive, not only to women, but to the other groups you mentioned, whether they're trans, non-binary, all these other people who have a passion for this, but maybe aren't comfortable yet?
Let's answer that after the break.
All right, we'll answer that. Thank you, Cody. When we come back, my guests are Charolette Converse from Solemn and Michelle Foik from ERIS Brewery and Cider House. We're talking about the Vibes Beer Project here on Crafty Brewers. We're going to taste it and answer that question after this.
Hey, Cody here from my editing suite. I have a few quick things before we continue with the episode. First of all, I strongly encourage you to stick around until the end of the episode. We go totally off the rails to the point where literally the last 3 to 4 minutes of the episode, the main cameras just die. It's like one of those conversations that you expect to happen off microphone, but we're still recording. So really fun. I encourage you to listen. Second thing, please take our listener survey if you have not already. We're collecting information from our listeners like you to see what you like about the show and how we can make it better. So please join our friends John, Gina, Rob, Trevor, and Fuzzy Brewer Loves Beer in taking the listener survey at craftybrewerspod.com/survey. You can also find a link to the survey in the description of this episode that you're watching or listening to right now. Just look at your podcast app and scroll down to the description of the episode. You'll get a shout out, and we'll give stuff away if we ever have a budget for that. And if a survey sounds like too much work, please leave a comment on this YouTube video. YouTube recommends videos to people based on things like how many comments it gets. So the more comments there are on a video, the more YouTube will tell people to listen to our show, which will help us grow our audience, which will encourage us to continue to do this for free for you all the time. You can comment literally anything, say the word cool, or say the word nice, or tell us something you liked about the episode, or even ask a question, and I can get in touch with Michelle or Charlotte or Brian to get you an answer. We are here to educate and entertain you, so any comments you leave, we will totally see and we will totally respond to, and it'll be very exciting.
And one final quick announcement. If you're a TikToker or you know TikTokers, we do now have a TikTok. I am mostly posting clips from our podcast, but occasionally Brian and I will be posting beer reviews and just chatting about what we're drinking and maybe doing some behind the scenes shenanigans. So we have some fun videos. A couple of them have over 1,000 views. People seem to like it. So check us out. TikTok at Crafty Brewers is our handle. Just Crafty Brewers on TikTok. Anyway, again, encourage you to check out the end of the episode. It's really good. So stick around and cheers.
All right, we are back on Crafty Brewers Tales Behind Craft Beer. Today we are talking about the Vibes Beer Project with one of its organizers, Charolette Converse from Solemn Brewing, and Michelle Foik, the co-owner of ERIS Brewery and Cider House. All right, ladies, I've given you time to have a couple sips and come up with the question, because as Tony Soprano said a long time ago, remember when is the weakest form of conversation. So why talk about the past of women in brewing? The question I asked you before is, things have been moving along and progressing. Where do you want the beer industry, not just local, but everywhere, to go from here?
Okay.
Please.
I'm going to say that Vibes won't need to be a project. That is really it. It won't need to be a project. We won't need to gather women in a room to do one thing and educate them. It will be on the brewery or the organization themselves to say, you're a person that works here, and we want to teach you and educate you and support you. We want you to feel safe and comfortable. Because ultimately, all it does is create a safer and more welcome space for your customers.
Right.
And there's no way you lose on that. So when you're saying women, or you're saying a non-binary or a trans person or somebody who just doesn't feel safe in a male-dominated space, all we do is win when we say we're making that space for you.
So what's it going to take for that to come even incrementally?
It's honestly education and support. So we're educating women, more breweries saying, hey, you work here, and maybe you're front of house, and I get it. I mean, even at our brewery, you get so bogged down on your day-to-day and your week-to-weeks where we've got to meet this deadline, we've got to do this, so we're just in it. But if you say, hey, I need the staff to come in so they can learn a brew day, they can sit here and do this and this, all you're doing is giving them the confidence to sell your beer better. There is no way you lose on that.
You're giving them the opportunity.
It really is. It's that simple, and it's just confidence, education, the opportunity. It'll win for you, and then long term, when they decide to move on, it wins for them, and it's great.
Very good. All right, Michelle, you had time to think.
I did. Yes,
Let's go.
I really feel like it's the idea of being able to give them the technical ability to have the confidence in themselves. So, like Charlotte said, if we have more women-owned or trans-owned businesses opening up and allowing them to see how everything works so they can understand how it works in a positive, how it works in a negative, giving them the tools. I think that's the biggest thing too, is because if we want to see them take the step into that, or want to see anybody to take that, it's a risk. Anytime you do something on your own, it's a risk. But if you have a community of people around you, that risk is a little bit less, because you have someone that you can go say, oh shit, I need this. And someone's like, I have someone. That's 3 people that just came up to you and said, I have your back. You need anything, I'll help you move it through it.
That's craft beer in general, right? I think craft beer in general is the most supportive industry and community in general. Like, that is it. I can't tell you how many times a day an email comes across from the guild saying, hey, I need this, I need that. And everyone just, we always have each other's backs. And now this is taking it a step forward and saying, we have this underrepresented community, and we're going to have their backs too. And really, it's like, maybe you don't want to be an owner. Maybe you don't want to do this or this, but you know what? This is a space you can work in. And it really comes down to the men in this industry stepping up too and saying, we've got this for you.
Oh, I
agree with that. It's not just the women
100%.
doing all of the work. It is the men saying, hey, this is a space you can work in and you can
Is
do
it
things.
still a hard sell? You would think by now it would be a much easier ask.
It's easier. But
I think if you take it out of Chicago, though, I don't think
harder.
it's as easy.
Yeah.
I think Chicago is a very accepting community, city, and all that.
1,000%.
And with the women that we had come this year, or the people in general that came this year to do the brew day, Indiana, Minnesota, Chicago and Wisconsin, like, I'm not sure if we were to ask that question to those people. I'm not so sure that bubble is the same.
Right.
Because that's what we see. Chicago is going to be one of those communities that are, like,
I have some
open
breweries that I asked that were on board until I mentioned terms like non-binary and trans people, and then they stopped responding. And that is a key indicator of they're supporting women-ish.
Yeah.
So that's a hard thing. I think that's an evolution of the project, too, is like, hey, we're just trying to make it a safe space for people to enjoy beer and cider. Like, that's it.
That's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I think that's what I love to see.
Can we have a beer together? That's all it is.
Yeah. I like to see that. I think that's where I want the growth to happen. Is Chicago's a great space, a safe space. I think a lot of us are in a safe space, really, honestly.
There's so many
when it comes to
supportive
breweries,
men in this industry.
And definitely men in that industry that support us. But I think you go outside of Chicago, I think it's harder. And I think it probably means more, if Charlotte decides whatever she wants to do with this. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm not kidding. Like, there's a lot of power in Vibes, and there's a lot of empowerment in Vibes. And it really does help when she opens up the doors for people all in different states, different regions, talking about Pennsylvania, talking about different areas. The more we can expand the community that Chicago brings to other breweries outside of Chicago, I think that's where it's really going to make a bigger impact.
I just don't see how you lose in any part of this.
Correct.
I just don't see how you lose by saying we're welcoming people to come in and have beer with us.
Well, see, you're using logic.
Right.
And logic is a thing of the past.
It seems so easy. I know.
On paper, Charlotte, that sounds
Trust me,
great.
yeah.
But
I know.
All right. Listen, we've been talking about Brew Day. Let's talk about Vibes for the Heartland, which is the beer from Vibes Beer Project, and Vibes from the Orchard. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes, Vibes from the Orchard, which is the cider. So we will defer to you, Charlotte, to describe the beer, and then obviously, Michelle, you can tell us all about the cider. Who comes up with this recipe, or is this the same one that you used last year?
No, so it was last year. I went in this with a very democratic approach, and
you can't do that.
I know.
Oh my God!
Can I comment about that?
Yeah.
So last year,
I tried so hard to make this.
It was so cool. Okay, so her ideas were great ideas.
I also thought it was 20 people.
Correct. Well, that's the thing.
That'll work.
She's like, Michelle, we're gonna have this hop rub day, and we're gonna bring in all the people that want to anybody that wants to come on this night. We're gonna be able to do a hop rub, and we're gonna have, I don't know, what was it, 20 hops?
We had 10.
Okay,
15,
so I get a little exaggerated.
Sure, yeah. Hyperbole
it was
is
probably
correct.
20 for sure.
300 hops.
Exactly. On this table. And it was one of the coldest, snowiest nights into 2024. And I'm on my way. I'm running there. I live down the street. I got my shoes on. I'm running in the snow. And I walk in. I'm like, oh, my Lord. There is
45 women showed up.
Oh, my God.
Out of the 100 or 80 that showed up, so half the women that were going to go for the brew day were there. And Charlotte was keeping everybody wrangled in. Everybody got a chance to do the smell and the rub and all this fun stuff. But by the end of the night, woo, it was very exhausting.
Yeah. I mean,
And you tried to let everybody have a say?
Well, I tried to say,
totally.
We're doing this hop rub, and let's vote on style and this and this. The thing I forget about is some women are not, they might work in a front of house, and maybe they work for an organization that doesn't really clue them in on the rest of the beer world and how it works. And some breweries are not distroing, and they're not doing this and this. So they can do cool one-off styles.
Oh, sure,
so when somebody says, I want a hibiscus saison, I was like, that sounds really cool, but we can't sell that beer.
Right.
And it will cost us so much to make.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I think was really cool. It taught me was all right, cool. Here's other things we need to teach women about is let's talk about the cost of making a beer. And that's one thing Michelle and I have been considering and wanting to implement in this program is the other side, the not so fun
The economics
side.
of it.
Really,
Yeah.
because it's you can, Pink Boots, I think, to their credit, it's they kind of have some free, let's do this in this style. But I think with Vibes, the point was, let's do a style that's going to sell, because now we have to do 90 barrels of it, and we're selling it all over Illinois and Wisconsin and Indiana, so we've got to pick a style that sells. So last year, we let as many people vote as possible, and then we determined of the majority of the vote. This year, based on last year's results, we're all drinking light stuff. We want a lager.
Right.
Okay.
But also knowing if we're donating some proceeds, we're doing some cool stuff, lagers aren't really going to do it for us. So as far as the sales price and the price point goes, so this year is a West Coast Pilsner, which is a style that is coming to fruition. I would say it's kind of debated on sometimes even.
Yeah.
You're taking old school, hoppy, like really tropical forward aromatics and notes, but you're blending it with fermenting it like a lager, low ABV like a lager, and the malt bill of a lager. So a West Coast Pilsner, which Tipo Pils was one of those, and there's been a couple of breweries that have done them really, really well. Style that I love. And so this year, a little less.
Little less democracy.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Little
You know
less.
what?
And the thing is like, I wanted to go in this and say, hey, we're going to do this style. Please be a part of it.
Yeah.
Because there's other facets into it. And also, we're going to watch the trends, and we're going to say, here's what sells and here's what goes on. So, yeah.
Yes. So this is Vibes from the Heartland.
West
Coast Pilsner.
All right, give it. You also have to smell the aroma. The aroma is
The aromatics
phenomenal.
on
This
it,
is where the West Coast comes
Cody,
into play.
take a big sniff of this.
The cool part about this beer,
It's right in front of you. The West Coast Lager.
Solemn.
Nope, that's a cider. Cody, that's a cider.
That's a cider.
Cody, that's a cider. Cody, that's a cider. Cody, that's a cider.
Is that one a cider?
That's a cider.
Okay.
I hope that's like a
That's the
new
beer.
Cody. That's a cider.
Cody, he's going to put that to a beat.
He's going to.
Oh, yeah,
I love
totally.
it.
We're
No,
going to
that's what I
have
was
a
getting
dance
from it.
track.
I have that much free time. Yeah, I'm just going to do that. Oh, wow.
The cool thing
It'd
about
be fun
Vibes-
advertising. Cody, that's
Yeah.
a cider. Cody, that's a cider.
Yeah, that's a new commercial next year.
Maybe that's when you do. Maybe
Yeah.
you have a day
Hey,
here and you develop
Vibes
Cody.
from
That's
Cody,
a cider.
you know?
Yeah. It's
So,
very
I can make
good.
a Cody cider
so
really
last
good.
year, Solemn does not have women on the production team. So
Okay.
although women were on the brew deck and they were helping out every part of it, we still had men helping with that. Which, to give credit to Solemn, the men on that team, again, wildly supportive. They try not to get too hands-on. They were just like, cool, we'll be here to watch you on our system,
Cool.
do what we need to do. Feedback I got last year was like, well, the recipe wasn't developed by a woman and this and this. So I stepped, and which I am so...
Yeah,
like,
I guess that's
I
true,
appreciate
yeah.
that, and I respect it.
Sure, sure.
I reached out to Ashley Benson, who at the time was brewing with Phase 3, formerly with Arizona Wilderness, and a woman that I really loved, and was like, hey, I want to do this project. Would you mind actually coming out for Brew Day and brewing the beer? So she helped make the recipe along with our brewers, and then she came out and she brewed the beer on a system she's never touched a day in her life, which as a brewer, I think would scare a lot of men.
Very
Yeah,
scary.
It was
Oh, no.
She was nervous. It's intimidating. Yes, a brewing process is the same, but you know your system.
Right.
And she came out and she just crushed it. I mean, she was just like in the trenches, and we all like said hi from the stage as we're, and we're like, hey, we love you. And like everyone just cheering and screaming her name out. And she was just like blushing and having the time of her life. But what a rad woman that I've always respected. And like, same thing with Michelle. Like, it's like these women who have led this industry that are willing to step forth and say, we'll devote our time and our energy to this, which is the only way it works.
And who handles the canning and all, like just the cost of everything?
It depends. So Solemn Oath right now for Vibes has backed Vibes no matter what.
Nice.
So,
Shout out Solemn Oath.
Yeah, no, it's,
Absolutely.
This project would not have worked without John Barley and Solemn Oath giving their blessing.
Very nice.
Yeah, I have to give them credit, and the guys on the team, they are my favorite guys to work with. But at the end of the day, so what's cool about Vibes is it's gained some traction and some people want to support it. So this year we had Haas and Yakima donate hops.
Nice.
Last year we had Cask actually donate cans.
Yep.
We've had people donate labels. We had people donate lunch. Like every year this project grows. We're seeing more and more people get on board.
Terrific.
Where Solemn Oath isn't covering and bearing all those costs, which is
That's
really
great.
cool. So we can donate more of the proceeds.
So we're going to get to the cider in a minute, but when and where will people be able to get Vibes from the Heartland?
So Vibes from the Heartland, if you go to solemnoathbrewery.com, you'll see an entire page that is dedicated to the Vibes project. It lists everybody that is currently carrying it or is bringing it on in the next week or two. You'll see it pretty much across Chicagoland by the end of this week, which is Women's Day on March 8th. And then you'll find some of it in Indiana and some of it in Illinois.
So go to solomothbrewing.com.
Yep.
I saw it at Whole Foods yesterday.
Yes, and so there is a QR code on the cans too, which is cool. It'll lead you to our website, which shows you everyone that participated and everyone who's carrying it.
And that is a formidable list.
Yes.
As I was reading,
it's a very cool list.
Yeah, it's
there are breweries that I've looked up to for a very long time on that, and it is overwhelming and humbling to see their involvement on this project.
Can I also say this?
The cider included.
That's not a cider, Cody.
This is the beer.
That's a beer.
Great.
We talk about this on the show. This is a beer flavored beer.
It's a beer flavored beer.
It's.
What's funny is the number of women that drink beer flavored women. That's it. We want beer flavored beer. We all want this. And
yes.
When it comes to projects like this, again, harder sell. We don't make as much money off as we would. We also know a hazy IPA is going to outsell a lager or a Pilsner any day of the week. We know that. But it's a beer we're in love with and we're proud of. So
it would seem to go with everything.
It's got the balance, though.
It does.
It may not be hazy, but it's still got the nice balance of the bitters. Mm-hmm. Yep, totally hop forward. The aroma's there. But that bitterness is subtle and balanced.
That's what I was going to say. It's hop forward, but it doesn't have that bitterness
of being.
Yeah.
And you've got four hops in there, right?
Citra, Simcoe Cryo, and then HBC 1019, which is an experimental hop from Haas, which is getting its
That's
own
the
name
one that has the
year.
mind control, right?
Yeah,
okay.
Totally. Yeah. What's that one weird project that doesn't? Yeah. Yeah. No, it's cool. It has its own name coming next year. I've heard. So
it's going to become popular only because of the Vibes project, right?
Vibes
we made it popular.
Right? Yeah.
I don't know. HBC 1019 sounds very exotic.
I think it's cool. Keep it. Yeah. Vibes from the HBC 1019. No, I think this is probably my favorite version of this beer because of the way the recipe was made, but also just turned out really well.
It's really good.
And then the cool part was the cider.
It's been so good that I drank all of mine.
Now let's get to the cider because last year you did a beer.
Yeah.
This year you've done a bear.
This year I talked Michelle into this.
Elbow her way into the project and create Vibes from the Orchard? How did this come about?
Well, it was Charolette, to be honest. We had talked about the idea of being more just teaching people more about different types of beverages in the industry. So I was really interested in the idea that I would love to be able to do another technical speak about the cider itself. And so most people in the beer industry don't know how to make cider. You have to have a wine background, but also have the same type of background for beer.
Most of us carry a cider in our tap room. We don't know enough about it. And that's the problem. I've been carrying cider from ERIS in my tap rooms. Multiple breweries I worked at for 6 years.
Yeah, there's always a cider on a menu.
And I didn't know enough about it.
Well, you need to have a gluten-free item no matter what.
Yeah.
And something out of apples works the best. But no, it was a lot of fun because it was the idea that so watching Charolette come up with the structure of the brew day was something that was inspiring because it allowed people to learn about Abby's background, about the hops that were involved in the beer, about Ashley, and about a lot of technical stuff too. So you guys had many different programs where instead of just hanging out and drinking all day and
which
watching,
is what a collaboration is.
Which is always fun about the collaboration.
Yeah.
But I kind of thought that, I said to Charolette, hey, would it be all right if we do a whole seminar first about how to taste ciders? And not just tasting ciders, but also what the elements in your mouth do with certain types of fruit, because fruit changes the pH levels, the flavor profile, and the acidity of your mouth. And so before we went into the actual recipe aspect of things, I talked about what our bricks were on our ciders. And bricks is another form of sugar scientifically. Okay. And ERIS doesn't do a lot of sweet ciders. But we do like to balance our stuff out.
Sure.
And so to me, having that ability to sit down with everybody and teach them about this, because one of our ciders is called Blush, and it's a cherry cider.
Right.
And that particular cider is the highest in bricks. So it's got the highest sugar content coming from the cherries scientifically. But if you were to taste that versus Euphoria, which has vanilla and ripe apple in it, you would swear that the vanilla and ripe apple was sweeter than the Blush.
Huh.
But in the Blush, we use sour cherries that balance out the sweetness from the sweet cherries.
Okay.
So we got to do a chance to do that. we also got a chance to talk with Shayna from Haas, and she brought over some these really fun extracts. And we added that to our ciders just to see like what that might do. And like one was like cannabis and lemon
Easy,
and
Cody.
lime.
Yeah,
It wasn't actually cannabis, but
pomelo,
pomelo was a
guava,
really good one. Yep.
grapefruit. Yeah.
So it was just an idea of showing people like, hey, this is how we do this. We can either take a little bit of a serum and put it into our drinks, or we could take a concentrate and add it into our cider.
Cider.
And then for us, because it is a blend, it was easy to take Pedestrian as our base cider
Okay.
or Euphoria as our base cider, and then add all the concentrates that were on the table. So every single table had about, I don't know, what was it, like 10 concentrates and extracts?
It was a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah.
No, we had
And so you would
kiwi,
take
we had
one cider and
strawberry.
just add it all together, or just like add one and try it and add another
So
one and
all
try it?
50
Everybody
ladies.
kind of did a different thing,
Yeah.
okay.
which was cool. And then we were like, I want to submit this. I want to
Yes.
say like this blend works really well.
So it's a little bit different than the brew day because as a brew day, you can't do that. You
Right.
don't have the opportunity to do
Yeah.
that. So about 50 women showed up that day, which was another cold, icy day.
Snowy
that I only
January
have,
6th
yes.
too, where people are like, I don't want to go out today.
Exactly. But these women came in and they all filled out recipe sheets. And so we took all the recipe sheets and we looked at the costs of all the recipe sheets because we had to look at that. Because like that is one thing that I hope we improve next year is like being able to give them
Yeah.
a lesson in this is the back of the house aspect.
The
But
financial aspects of it.
correct.
Okay.
But
And
yeah.
so what did you end up with? What is
Sorry.
the final? That's all right. What is the final beer from the, or cider
All right.
from the orchard?
So, can I just talk about the 3 ones that we left?
Of course.
All right. So, it came down to 3. We were very excited. I had our production team come upstairs, and I had them taste out all the recipes. So, we did one that had cherries and plum.
Oh,
And then another recipe was apricot and cherry and vanilla. So, that was those 3.
Oh, okay.
And then we had another one that was apricot plum and cherry again, but double the dose.
what makes cherry so good in cider? I mean, if all 3, that's the common thread between
just
all 3.
hits.
So
It's also sweet
You know what?
cherry.
That's the easiest answer, Charlotte. I
hits.
like that.
I'll
It
let her
just
get
is.
I'll let her
It's
explain, but it
just
just
good.
hits.
It does. It does. Yeah, and it was sweeter. The
Okay.
cherry sweetened up the
Okay.
concept. So, yeah, it was. But we ended up going with a really balanced plum, sweet cherry, and pure apple, and that is what we're looked at right here.
Plum,
and something else
cherry,
I want
and apple.
Yeah, something else I want to mention. We don't use the word plum in the description.
Because
In the past, we have had a plum cider. And now this is a secret that, like, I know this is going to go out to the world, but I'm kind of being Oz behind the curtain. I'm going
All right.
to open up the curtain here.
Cody, take note.
I
Big
know,
reveal.
please, big reveal here. Plum doesn't sell. I don't know
Which
if
is
the
wild.
general,
I would love anything plum.
the general public, I don't know if they think it's a prune. I don't know if they think it's a raisin, or I don't think they understand what plum is.
Okay.
But we had a plum cider on draft at Brewpub. And what happened was that we ended up changing the name and calling it a stone fruit cider. We sold 3 times as much
Really?
in the month than we did the previous month as a plum cider.
So we're
Wow.
marketing it as a stone fruit cider. Yeah.
There-
Right? And the ingredients on the label does state
Yep.
plum.
okay.
But we are marketing it as stone fruit because I just don't think the general public understands what plum is. So
Yeah.
Wow.
What's cool about
That's-
this too is like kind of some of the concept behind this, a little bit of the concept was being able to blend the two of them together. So you can have the beer and the cider side by side on their own, or you can do a little half and half mix in your glass.
Of the beer and the cider?
And it is fantastic, which is what I'm drinking right now, but it is so good.
There it
and
is.
I really
I like it.
recommend
There it
50-50.
goes.
Like it really is like such a cool, it's a fruited version of the beer.
Cody,
It's
you
awesome.
gotta go half and half. You gotta mix some of the
Yeah.
beer with the cider. That's what the
50-50.
that's the pro tip.
I drank all the beer.
I can help you out with
it
that.
was so good. That beer, can I also, before I talk about the cider, can we also mention about the beer?
Yeah.
My wife loves IPAs. I'm not an IPA guy. That beer is something I think we could both enjoy.
Cool, because
Yes.
that was the plan. It was like it's a lager by all technical terms. It's a lager, but it is hop forward enough
It is,
to
yes.
please the folks
Yes.
that really like an IPA and want a little more oomph to their beer.
And I like the way that IPAs smell.
Yeah.
So when it hit
It's
my
all
nose,
in the-
I'm like,
yep.
oh my
It's
God.
all in the aromatics in that beer. Man, Ashley crushed it. She did.
She did a great
And
job.
I love the side. You get the sweetness of the cherries, but it's not cloying. And then you really get that kind of almost like a Honey Crisp or a Cosmic Crisp apple
Yeah.
feel in there, which that
Yeah.
little
I
bit
mean,
of
this,
bitterness. It's really nice.
This is the first time I've had the cider tonight, and it was really like
It was really good.
This
it
is
was cool
so
walking
good.
into this and tasting and going, oh my God, yes, like
How
cool.
have you turned me into a cider guy? Ugh.
That's so
I don't know, but I love it.
It's another hit for you.
man.
Huh?
It's another hit.
I know.
Another
What
hit.
a cool thing though is like this beer and this cider are both so great on their own.
Yeah, now what?
They're so good together.
Can you mix them into a pre-made cocktail?
Not a pre-made. Like I know in our tap room, starting this weekend, we are selling them at Solemn. You can get cans of each to go.
Okay.
We're selling them as a to-go mix pack too.
There you go.
But also we have it on draft, so you can have it if you want to
Okay.
order them separately or as a combo. You want to be a cool off-menu guy, which it'll be on
Wow.
the menu, but like it's like.
If
my
you know,
favorite
you
thing-
know.
My favorite thing is like experimenting too and trying new stuff. I've been mixing Lou, which is Salomon's core Kolsch that they've had for 13 years, along with
Lush.
Blush, their rosé cider. I've been mixing those together forever, and that's my favorite off-menu item.
Wow.
So being able to mix this cider and that beer is like, again, the evolution of cool. We took something that was already in place, and now we're making it better. And we're
Wait,
doing better
how
things with it.
common is that for people that work at breweries to mix their beer? Like this, I mixed it, and this is amazing.
There are weird things that happen in beer all the time. We just don't always sell it. We also don't always want to do the work for it. And also, we don't know what the public will think about it. At the end of the day, we want you to come in and maybe you're expecting to get what you... Like, you want to come in and get what you expect, I guess. Versus,
Right.
I think the cool thing about supporting a brewery, if you get to know them locally, like your neighborhood brewery, they're going to start to show you some cool stuff, cool behind the scenes things. That's my biggest like takeaway is get to know your bartenders because they're going to show you some cool things. They're going to say, hey, I just took a sample off the Bright tank. Do you want to try this beer that's not even released yet?
Become
like-
a regular.
Become a regular.
Become a regular. Tip well.
When I worked at Starbucks, there would be baristas I worked with. They would be like, "Oh, dude, did you try the like white chocolate mocha but with raspberry?" And like they make these little twists on that. But
Yeah.
like,
And that's why they've lost money and had to cut their menu. Nice job,
dude,
Cody.
white mocha and raspberry syrup kills.
It's really good.
You
yeah.
literally, it gives you diabetes. It's bad. It's not great. I have diabetes. I'm allowed to say that. But I never like. To me, I'm never a guy that's like, I want to mix beer
Yeah.
with something or cider. Like they're not mixing beverages. But
Well, I think
So
some
other
of
than
it is like a
micheladas.
weird taboo thing too with craft beer, where it was like, oh, well, that's not really meant to be that way, and I think it's okay to move beyond that and say, no, we're behind the bar and we drink the beer as bartenders. Again, I will say this as someone who bartended in a craft brewery, like you get a little bored sometimes, and you want to try some new things. And again, it came from me. It was like, I like this cider, I like this beer. Let me blend them together, and the profile was awesome. And
So that's
That's
for
it.
me at
Yeah.
ERIS, because we're a brewery and a cider house,
Yeah.
that's always been our plan.
yeah, and
Our
that's so
plan
mix
was
it up.
always to make blends, snake bites, black velvet.
Yeah.
You know, go back
Yeah.
to the '90s when
Black Velvet.
people were
90s
Guinness,
throwback.
right? Guinness and cider or Guinness and champagne. Like that's a true blood. But yeah, black
Oh,
velvet.
wow.
So for ERIS, we've always had a category of blends, and that was our beers and our ciders together, and it's always been curated by our staff because they're the ones that enjoy having the two together.
And they drink
Okay.
it. They drink
They
it more than
completely
anyone
drink it,
else.
and they talk about it, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things that we talked about was when Whole Foods picked up your cans and our cans, we were like, hey guys, we would really like to start up like an advertisement in the sense or in a campaign where buy both 4-packs,
Right.
take them home, and I've kind of labeled it as good vibes. You know,
Love
as
that.
the blend. I mean,
Yeah.
we probably could have think of a better name for
Yeah.
it, but
I
right
feel
now
it.
it's just
I'm-
the good vibes.
Yeah, It's the off menu.
So,
It's like
exactly.
I would like a good vibes.
Yeah.
Because that's what it is. This whole project is a good vibe.
Good
And
vibe.
I want to say, like, to people that have both of those brands in their houses now, whether it's a bar or a brewery or whatever, add another item to your menu and make money
It's
off
so
of it.
easy.
You know, like, some of our proceeds are going to certain charities. So, like, add another one. Do it again, sell it more, and get more out there.
So where are the proceeds going? Since you
So-
brought it up.
Yeah.
Yep.
So last year and this year, a portion of proceeds are going to the Illinois Craft Brewers Guild
Good.
to support the diversity program, which helps send women and then people of color to Siebel for
Institute.
their
Okay.
for their
For
program,
scholarships,
which
yeah.
is great.
Nice.
I feel also like as white women, sometimes we have a space to say we're also privileged and we should help support people that are not in our community, and that's really
100%
important.
agree.
So we've got that. But then also my whole point this year was like pick a community or an organization in your space that makes sense to donate to. So women that actually, especially right now, might need our assistance as far as do they need housing or supplies or monetary funds to make sure that their organization is getting what they need to support women in your neighborhood.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, Michelle, you know what time it is because when we come to the end, and Charlotte, you're going to get at the end of every episode, we ask the brewer or the brewery representative the same 4 questions, the final 4. And you just give us your answer, be as honest as
Yes.
you want. So this is a little different, but you've spent a lot of time in the back of the house, and you've tried a lot of things. We ask the hill you'll die on. Like, normally when it's a brewer, it's a beer that you, no matter what, no matter how popular, you will not drink it. Do you have either one that you hope Solemn Oath never brews or one that you will never drink no matter what everybody else is saying?
Oh, that I'll never drink? Honestly, no. I shouldn't say that. There's some. I mean, people try to make brute beers a thing. That'll never
Root
be
beer?
my, yeah.
We
the
made
hard
one.
root beer? No.
It'll never be my thing. There's that one, but honestly, otherwise, I'm pretty open to most things.
All right.
And I feel like you should be because your palate changes.
Your palate, yeah, your
I
palate
used to be
does
really
change.
into
Look at this.
sours and wilds, and now when you try to give me one, I'm like, I have to have a bottle of Tums first. Thank you.
Yeah, now I'm drinking cider.
I know. Look at
I know
you.
you
whole
out
world-
of
the whole
everyone
world is
should
upside
know
down,
like, we
Cody.
had that
Nothing
question.
makes sense
Upside
We're
down.
changing that question because that was like
Yeah,
one
but
of your.
I don't.
I will say,
I don't
okay, here's my
create the
thing is,
product. I just drink it.
I think as someone who works, my benefit is that I am not ever just back of house. Back of house, I
Right.
can think like them. I know what they like to brew and what they don't like to brew. I know what sells and what doesn't sell. I will say I could go 1,000 years without ever drinking a milkshake IPA for the rest of my life.
Cody, Milkshake IPA makes
They
another
could
appearance.
RIP milkshake
on the Hill You'll
IPAs.
Die. Everybody hates the Milkshake IPAs. All right, since you do know what sells in Solemn Oath's brew pub, and you know what the production team likes to make, a beer that maybe for Solemn Oath you guys thought it was great, and people might have actually even loved it, but for whatever reason, the production team and everybody there went, we're not making this one again.
It wasn't the production team. I will say like an ESB called Chub Guts that we never even put out into production. Or sorry, we never put into the market.
Chub Guts?
Chub Guts. It's a reference from Total Recall.
Chub Guts?
Yeah, it's the guy
I
who
should
like,
know
comes.
this.
It's
I
the
don't
guy who
know.
comes out of his belly. Yeah,
And you're talking, one of the nerdiest guys I know who
I
loves all
know.
that stuff is back there. Chub
I
Guts,
know.
nothing?
So
Okay.
Chub Guts was like it's an ESB, which was a killer of a beer on draft. It
What's an
crushed.
ESB for people who don't know?
English Special Bitter. Like
Got
it's
it.
it's very like it's such an approachable beer. I feel like most people
Traditional
that-
pub beer. Like
yeah, it's a pub
an
beer.
English pub
Yes.
beer. Yeah.
People would love the beer, and they did.
Yeah.
On draft, it sold so well. There's a reason it was draft only, though, because we felt like style-wise, canning out, and like it just would not have sold the way we wanted to, and we wouldn't have made money off of it. So, yeah, I'm a big supporter of Chub Guts,
Chub Guts. All right,
which is
so
also a great name.
when we go, yeah, it is a great name. Somebody's going to hear that and go, we're stealing Chub
Yep.
Guts right now. Maybe there'll be a new cider.
Yeah.
Don't do
No,
it,
no,
Michelle.
I don't know about that.
All right, off the clock. Your go-to off the clock, either beer or cider. Could be one
man.
that you guys make. Could be somebody else. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. So I have a couple.
All right.
Because I'm an awful clock. It's always High Life. I feel like that is the answer for everybody that works in the industry.
It is, and if we don't get High Life to sponsor this podcast,
they have to.
They get a shout out every
Everybody
episode.
that works in craft beer
that.
drinks High Life.
Yes.
It is. You know why? At the end of the day, our palates are so overwhelmed and so crushed by everything that we do. We need that.
Yeah.
So it's High Life. Also, I drink a lot of rosé lately. Like, I'm a wine girl.
All
yeah.
right.
But not just a wine girl. Like, I'm a rosé girl now, which I never
All
thought was going to be
day,
a thing.
I hear. Rosé
Here I am.
all day.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
I will say that. Locally, though, like, I have some beers. I mean, obviously, like I said, Blush from ERIS and Lou, my favorite blend. But then otherwise, I drink a lot of Old Irving Brewing. Like, a lot.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I mean, Trevor
Trevor's
Trevor
making some
is
good
one
stuff.
of the most supportive humans, not just in women, but like mental health. And
Mental health,
men.
hands down.
Like, he is one of those people in beer that Chicago, like, we will only thrive because of Trevor and what he does at Old Irving. But the
Shout out
beers-
Trevor Rose Hamblin, Old
Yeah.
Irving
Exactly.
Brewing.
The beer and the food, incredible.
It is a great. But we talked to Trevor a couple months ago,
Yep.
and I had been there a number of
Did
times.
you
You're
also
right.
like? Do you love him? Like, is he your older brother now?
He
He's
is.
mine.
You know, we sweat profusely together, the three of us.
He is that guy.
We sat in their production facility on a 100-degree day with no air
I love
conditioning,
it.
and
Oh,
we
man.
sweat like
I can
animals.
see it now because I know how he would react, and he is someone that I have gone to again, like Michelle. Like, he is my go-to person, and not just that, they make incredible beer. His whole team, like
It's a great place.
I go to concerts with his team. I
Yeah.
love them, but their beer, like, I eat and drink there once a week.
It's terrific stuff. All right,
Love
your
them.
final question. Speaking of eating and drinking, your favorite food and beer or cider pairing?
Okay. Well, I am a true Midwest gal, and I'm always, well, I should say I'm a true Chicago gal. I love a pizza and a beer.
Okay.
I also love anything with cheese and fried dough in general. So
What beer would you put? What's your favorite beer with a pizza?
it's got to be a Pilsner or lager with the pizza for sure.
Right.
So my choices for food are always ERIS, Old Irving,
Okay.
and then once in a while I've been venturing out. So I'll go to Guinness.
Okay.
For sure.
No kitchen in your apartment?
Oh my gosh, no.
Okay, just checking.
No, I only eat out and drink out.
That's nice.
Home is for frozen pizzas only, and even then, it's like we'll see what's happening. But yeah, I mean, I'm blessed to live in the edge of Avondale and Logan Square, so I
Okay.
have the best food and drinks around me.
Yeah, you can't beat that.
No,
All right, well,
That's it.
those are the four. You did very well. You did
That's it.
very well. All right, well, thank you,
Cheers.
everybody. Yes, we will cheers it up.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Crafty Brewers Tales Behind Craft Beer. Be sure to support your local brewery. Without your support, it's tough going for some of your favorite breweries. So get out there, buy some, especially drop in now. Get some vibes from the Heartland or vibes from the Orchard. Help out your local brewers. That's the way to go. And your local cider houses as well. Crafty Brewers Tales Behind Craft Beer is produced by award-winning podcast producer Cody Goff. You can check out all our episodes and get in touch with us on our website, craftybrewerspod.com. And if you have a brewery you'd like us to talk to, or if you're a brewer that, look at Michelle's been here twice. We can't be that bad. If you want to join us too, you can send us an email. We answer our emails, not like a lot of brewers. I read them every day. I answer them. It's okay. Well, send us a note, craftybrewerspod@gmail.com. It's a very popular mail, service, Gmail. You might have heard of it. So if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Cody always says, please, Brian, tell them to tap your phone and give us a 5-star rating. Is that right, Cody? 5-star
we
rating.
love a 5-star rating.
We love that, too.
5 stars.
Thank you once again to Charolette Converse and Michelle Foik for joining us. Ladies, it was very enlightening.
you.
It was a lot of fun. Thank you for being here. I'm Brian Noonan. Cody, any last words?
If you're watching on YouTube, please leave a comment.
Okay.
Those are the lamest last words ever.
Those are, that's what you chose for your last words?
Yeah.
I I
we
would
edit that?
hope someday you're on death row and they ask you that question and you give those.
What
If
I
you're
think
watching
is
on
cool
YouTube,
It's about this project. It's like if you're watching on YouTube, you should let us know what your favorite pizza and beer pairing is.
Ooh, make
Cody, I
those
think I
comments
just stole your
happen.
job. I'm
Wow.
not kidding.
No, we
Make
need,
those comments happen.
I set it up. You two just made it happen.
You teed it
I
up.
think-
we need to hire a marketing person for this
We need to
podcast.
hire these two for this podcast.
Yes,
That's what we need to
definitely.
do.
Listen,
Definitely. I'll
my
just sit-
favorite thing
I'll
about
just sit here and
podcasts
drive the
is I
truck.
just want to hang out in the back and be the person that Googles stuff and be like, that's the answer that you're looking for.
you want to be the background.
That's supposed to be me.
That's
Damn it. All
Cody,
right,
I'm too busy drinking this beer. I've drank 3 of these.
Cody and I have worked together for years. He's never been the guy Google. Even if I go, Cody, will you Google that for me? Nothing.
Make it happen.
You know what I think about Cody is really cool? It's like he's into the conversation.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
He's into
Thank you.
Of
Thank
course,
you.
he is
paying
an
attention.
integral part of the program.
Yeah.
Of course, he's in on the
I don't even know where I
conversation.
am anymore because I keep drinking all of these.
Yeah.
That's
little,
well, that's all right.
Well,
That just means
I
it's
mean, I
really
did
good.
Joe Bobby's podcast, which was 3 hours long.
Oh, good lord, that's too
And I
too
love
long,
it.
isn't
It
it,
is
Cody?
way too long, and I keep telling him, like, bro, you got to edit this. But he's he used to work at breweries, and so I think everyone just has like this industry soft spot for him, where we're like, we'll talk to you because it feels like you're talking to a friend.
Yeah.
And you don't pay attention other than the fact that it's 90 degrees because he's got 700 cameras and things happening, and then his son's coming in the room hanging out with you, and it's like the best time. But you're also just wildly overwhelmed by everything, and it's a great time. But yeah. I'm
See, and Cody yells at me if we
and
go
then
too
he
long.
releases an episode, and I'm like, I love that person. I will not listen to them for 3 hours.
That's why I'm here to be underwhelming, and then that lowers the bar.
It helps. We need that. Yeah, that's great. No,
Yeah,
honestly,
Cody adds just enough to make him interesting, but not fascinating. It's like you want to hear what he has to say for a little bit.
honestly,
I'm so glad you guys are good friends.
I feel like I've done over the last year. I've done like 10 podcasts. It's always
We're your favorite, though, right?
well. I mean, it's a lot of the same.
That's where
questions.
she was going, Brian. You didn't have to set it up.
Oh, yeah, and listen, we're
Again,
thirsty
you teed
here.
it up, and now
We
I'm
are
just
very-
like knocking it down. No, my favorite thing is to just like kick you down. For
Oh,
sure.
sure.
But like,
Listen, I'm married. I know. I have a daughter. I know how that goes.
It is a thing where like you get asked the same questions over and over again. What's it like to be a woman in the industry? It's like that's not it.
Oh, shit.
I want you to.
Hold on.
Erase that. Erase that. No.
What's the next evolution? What's like that was such a good question of like where
Yeah.
are you taking it now? What's
Yeah.
the plan? Because
See, Cody.
Chicago does have a lot of really cool women in this industry, and we've been
Correct.
working so hard, and we have a face, we have a name. Where are we taking this?
Yeah.
I felt like that was a really cool.
Oh, well,
way to-
I'm
so
glad because it's.
Credit to you guys. Where like this felt way more natural than
Yeah.
some of the podcasts where I've been on. I'm like, why are you asking this question again?
Well, and that's
Well, thank
originally
you.
what happened with like Haley. Every time she got asked interview questions, she was just like, "You guys are asking the same damn question every time. What's my challenge? What's the difference?
Wait, we're
Why
still
can't I be in it?"
This is still the episode.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm
Yeah,
still
Cody
talking.
hasn't cut.
I'm saying it's like
I-
what's okay. So when you interview men, what are you asking them?
Yeah, exactly.
Ask me the same fucking question.
Yeah.
like that's
I asked them
want.
what it's like to be a woman in the industry. Everybody. I asked that of every guest.
You
it doesn't
should.
matter.
You should ask
Doesn't
a
matter.
man.
Male or female
You
or
should
whatever.
ask
Yeah, that
men,
makes sense.
What do you think it's like to be a woman in this industry? What challenges do women in this industry face?
Wow.
And they will probably not give you the same answers, but at least will stop them and be like, oh, and they might give you some generic answers. But the thing is I am fortunate too. Here's the thing: is someone asked me that earlier today, and I was like, you know what? 5 years ago, my answer would have been different. You and
Yeah.
I are in fortunate places. We've worked so hard. We had to work so hard where we don't have to always face the same challenges that women coming into this industry have to face.
No.
So our job now is to give them a platform.
And you
a
also,
space.
your generation of women in the industry have also had to face things that thankfully are no longer prevalent in the industry.
Yeah.
You know, there was.
There's been a
lot-
lot
a
of
lot
shift
of- a
in the
lot of
last 5
shit
years.
in the
Again,
industry.
5 years, like, some things have shifted, and it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. There are still moments where I'm like, I thought I was past this.
Yeah.
I
But
remember.
it's easy to call it out,
Yep.
and it's easy to put in some.
Huh.
Whoa.
Sometimes it is very much someone just not even realizing what they're saying. And
Yeah.
I think that's fair. And as a white woman, sometimes I'm that person who's like, my life is a lot easier than a person of color in this industry or a
Oh, yeah.
trans person in this industry.
Yeah.
Like, let's talk about what their life is like in this industry and how we can help support that.
Yeah.
Because that's our job.
I still remember one of the first times I ever met somebody. It was Katie and I. We were over at Starbucks, and it wasn't an investor. It was like it was more or less like a financial institution guy. Came in, and we're talking about our project, and we're talking about how much money we're spending on it. And this guy looked at us like we were crazy, and he's like, "How much money are you spending?" And I'm just like, "We're spending this and this and this and this," and he's like, "I don't think you ladies really understand what you guys are doing." And I'm like, wow, okay. And he really
That's one of the busiest brew pubs in Chicago.
right. And I was like, well,
Did he mansplain it to you?
he did yes, mansplained it, but it was also like one of those things where I was just like, but you haven't seen the location. It's 24,000 square feet. And that never he never heard that part. And he finally came into our place months later, and he actually apologized.
Oh, good.
He actually apologized. He's like, oh, when I met you ladies, I didn't know that you were talking about this building. I didn't understand that. I'm like, why didn't you? We told you. It was just crazy.
Do a little research.
Yeah, it was just
Do
one of
a
those
little
crazy
research.
things. So
Well, Cody, do we have enough? Did
I think
get
we have enough.
I'm trying to figure
No, I
out.
was just checking because I know you were checking the battery.
No,
or
we're
the
all
space.
no. The battery's fine. I'm just like, do we? This
can
is
keep
the
talking.
best post-credit sequence
Yes, we're just.
since the Avengers.
It is.
Pictures?
I
No,
just-
we just start talking.
I have pictures. No, this is. I'm thrilled by that. We end with a cheers, but
Yeah.
I like.
Oh,
please keep. This is gold.
well, but this is stuff that we don't really nobody really talks about the ideas of the things that we had to go through.
Michelle, we're gonna
no.
come back here every month.
It's
Yeah.
also it's one of those things of I think one of the things about developing the Vibes Brew Day is this idea of the names, right? So again, trying to be diplomatic and letting women decide the style, decide the name, and a lot of them were bashing on men.
Right, which we don't want to do that
One point of
either.
it is men in this industry are so supportive.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
this project would not exist without Solemn completely backing it 1,000% and giving me free reign. There was
Yeah.
never a point where they said you can't do this. They
Right.
were like, let's offer our guidance, but they also said every time they posted, they were like, can we? And I'm like, that's marketing's job. But also, yes, here's what it means to me personally. And then men across the industry that have messaged me and said, hey, this is so cool, and we can't wait to bring this into our bar, and we're thankful
Right. They're
that
breweries.
we can't do this for the women that work on us, so we're happy to send them to you because we
That's
cannot
cool.
allow it, it happened nonstop.
Cannot allow it.
Not allow it. They might not have it in their production schedule. They
Oh,
might not
I see. It doesn't fit.
It just didn't fit in work for them.
Sure.
And again, that's the struggle. It's that might not always work. Where it's they can help us anytime they want, but we can't highlight it as this
Yeah.
because we're brewing a beer.
Yeah.
And we're branding it. And we're sending it out for distribution and. There's just all these facets and reasons that people, again, don't always understand unless you work in the industry. So,
All right, you mentioned you had a hostess who became a server, and is there always the path in a brewery or a cider house to say to your manager, hey, is it possible for me to start observing this next job? I'd like to get into the production end. Can I do that?
For us at ERIS, and even at Revolution, I would say that we were first to be able to develop something like that with the people that have already worked for us.
Okay.
Because you're already passionate about the company.
Yeah, you know what's going
and
on.
all that kind of stuff. It's kind of the funny part about that is Marty, who works at Revolution, is my cousin. And when he came in, he does the barrel aging program now at Revolution. Yeah. And when he came in, he was just like, Michelle, I want to do this. I'm like, well, I can't just give you a job, you know, working downstairs and following the brewer. And he's like,
I did not
really?
know you guys are cousins. That's so cool.
Yeah. But the thing is that's how people want. They were like, oh, can I just come in and shadow all day long and do this all day long? No, this is an actual job. There's a lot of technical things happening. And I have to be careful about chemicals and all these kind of stuff.
One of your blends.
So for us, it's just been one of those things where if you're in-house, it's easier.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
So we can build
not somebody
something
who just
about it.
walks in the door, but somebody who's been with you for a year or a couple of years
Yeah.
and said, okay, I like every aspect of this.
Yeah.
I want to learn that aspect so I can
Thank you.
maybe after, a short time, okay, this wasn't for me. I like this area of the business better.
Yep.
But at least they've tried it and said, yeah, this is, because it
As
seems
an
fun, but we
employee-
know it's hard.
Oh, yeah. As an employee, I'm more apt to do that because they've already been here. They understand our
Yeah.
mission. They understand everything we're doing. But we have tons of people that email and say, hey, I would love to shadow somebody. I would love to do this. I'd love to do that. And like, I just have to turn around and
It's
say,
not
I'm
a
so
hobby.
sorry. It's exactly.
It's not
This
a
is-
hobby.
no.
That's the
It's
thing.
not a hobby.
It takes more time for me to take out of my schedule to show you that. So we don't get as much of that. I will say Solemn's always been really, really supportive. Like since day one, they have always been a place that's been like, whether you're a woman or not, it's like if you're front of house and you want to know more about the back of the house, yes, we will make sure that you are on deck. You're doing this,
Absolutely.
this. And quickly, most of them are like, oh, this ain't the job for me. Those jobs are hard. It's physical labor. That's what
rough.
it is.
Yeah.
It's not as creative. It is, especially when you work for a big production brewery. Like Solemn is not a small brewery. We produce a lot of beer, and a lot of this is the same beer.
Yeah.
Where it's like, hey, man, sometimes you're brewing the same stuff over and over
Yeah,
again.
it's like making burgers. You're just making
you're
the
making
same thing.
loo all day,
That's
baby.
right.
Yeah. So, but I do think it's important you offer those opportunities because it helps you sell the beer up front better.
Absolutely.
And it gives you an understanding of what's going on in the back. Like, if you can answer with craft beer, it's so different versus selling any other kind of beer. People are going to ask you so many weird, in-depth questions. And I only know that from working front of house myself. Like, you will get asked the weirdest stuff where you're like, it's helpful if you can answer this.
Do you think those are just people who are trying to show off?
No. I think
Yeah.
sometimes it's people genuinely interested. And sometimes, sometimes, yes.
Come on, you know there's, and I'm
Do
going
we
to
want
guess
to talk
it's
about the
mostly
older white men?
dudes.
Yeah, for sure.
Listen, as an older white man, I don't want to get lumped in with that group.
Yeah. No, I mean,
but no,
yes. As someone who
My
started,
ilk, right, Cody? You
I got
know.
started in craft beer as bartending 1 day a week for a brewery. And those are the questions we got asked all the time. And it took me shadowing. It took me spending time at Beer Fest. It took me learning the process to be able to answer those questions. But also, like, I'm giving you a better experience. And even if you're annoying, it's like, you're going to come back
Right.
and spend your money with me. So
Right.
who cares?
So since we're talking about this right now, Charlotte, when
About
you
men
started,
annoying you?
This is
Well,
going to be
no,
like a
no, but-
4-part episode.
Yeah,
This
totally.
is
Do
excellent.
you know, I need to call your attention. I have a clock for Brian. Do you know
Yeah.
what? It just says just roll with it.
Yep.
Like, I don't give a fuck at this point. Like, you guys, like, you ladies can talk as long as you want. I don't
This
care.
is going to be the first multi-episode
I know,
episode.
right?
I
you for
have
part two.
strict time limits, and you are exempt
Hang
from all
on,
of
after
it.
Charlotte pours herself another
I know.
combo,
I did.
shit
Which it
gets
is so
turned.
good.
It is
It's
really
so
good.
good.
I'm going to
Combo.
pour myself one in a second.
I
I'm
made eye contact with you, and I was like, no, I'm pouring
That
this
was
while we're
hilarious.
talking.
I like when you
Oh,
squeeze
oh,
some
there-
cans. I almost expected you to just toss them over your shoulder. Nope. Here's one.
I was like,
Glug.
listen, I had a near-death experience today.
Yeah, right?
I'm on
She's
board.
like, done. Oh, man. No, but I have to ask you, like, during your time when you were bartending at the craft bar, did you ever encounter a time when you were trying to explain somebody a craft beer?
I know where you're
And
going with this, and yes.
yes, exactly. But then a bartender who might have been male came next to you,
Always.
and they looked at you, and they looked at them, and they wanted that.
Let me up this question and say, not just a bartender. I bartended on Friday nights with a brewer who was a baby brewer. And he's a wonderful, like, human being. He's not a baby anymore, but he was a baby. He was 21, 22. And I bartended with him, and people would come up to us, and I'd start talking, and they would look at him and talk to him, and I'd be like, look at me. I'm the captain now. Like, it was that. I was like, I know more about this. And my favorite thing is I never had to, like, step in. I, again, want to give credit because I feel like I don't want to bash men in this industry because the
No.
men in this
Right.
industry are so supportive. They also know when to say, no, I don't know what I'm doing, and she does. So I would be at a beer fest, and somebody would say, they would be talking to him. She's like, she's the one to ask. She knows. She helps with our production schedule. She does this. She does that. Like,
Yeah.
they and to their credit, like, they help do it. But yeah, people would.
And what year was that?
I mean, this happens up until last year. This
Okay,
happens all
that's
the
what-
time.
That's my point. Like, that's my point.
It still
Like,
happens. But it doesn't, I guess it doesn't have as much. If women come in this industry right now, that would probably impact them way more than me because I'm so like, oh, you're just a ding dong. You
Yeah.
don't even understand.
Yeah.
You don't even get it, man.
Ding dong wasn't the word she was going to use.
Yeah.
No, that happened to me in as a GM at
Yeah.
Goose Island, Wrigleyville. People would
At
come
Goose
up
Island.
at Goose Island, yeah. But they would come up and be like talking to my assistant general manager. They'd talk to my manager, and my favorite was Reggie. Reggie would sit there and like he was also a black man, so it was like okay, so they talked to him because like it was just the two of us. You know, talk about minority, but like he sat there and everyone would come up. So, are you the buyer? Are you blah, 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 blah? And Reggie would look, and he started at this point was laughing. He's like, do you know the whole time she was trying to interrupt you and trying to talk to you that, like, maybe you should have let her do that because, like, she's the one you want to talk to.
She's the boss.
And their mouths would just drop. And I'm talking 2000.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm talking a long time ago because I was a baby, too. I was, like, 23 years old. But it was like, you can talk to him into your blue in the mouth. He's not going to give you the answer that I
That was
have.
my favorite thing, is to like just let them talk, and I'm like, cool, you're not going to
That's
get
what
the
you do.
answer you want from him.
Yeah.
But in a minute, he's going to tell you, you should talk to her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and, like, I'm also not, like, I feel like that whole idea of everything, it's like, we don't see it as much anymore.
No, we don't.
But I do think that it was definitely evident back in the day.
Yeah.
And then it was also evident that, like, I think the other part of that whole, like, combination is that, like, everybody's like, when I was a GM and, like, people would come in and they start fights, you know, I had a bouncer.
Right.
Like, I had someone at the door.
Yeah.
But I always told my bouncer, just stay at the door because they're taller, they're intimidating. And when you're in Wrigleyville, like, it's just a bunch of drunk
That
sports
atmosphere
guys.
is
just
so
Sports
bros.
people. Because I did have one of the only fights I ever had at Goose Island, Wrigleyville was a cat fight.
Those are the worst.
Probably
I used to
brutal.
be a
Probably
bouncer.
brutal.
Yeah.
Those are horrible.
Underneath the booth,
She
like,
said I was a
knocking each
bouncer.
other over.
No.
Like, honestly, like, those are fights I would be afraid of.
Oh, my God. I
Yeah.
think I almost got slapped, but it was
Yeah.
another thing.
Women are the
Pulled them all
worst
out.
in a fight. I broke up a fight. A guy was beating his girlfriend.
Oh.
I grabbed him. Next thing I know, she's on my back, punching me in the side of the head because I've got this guy in a chokehold because he was beating her up. And I was like, fine, fucking kill her. I don't care.
He was a bouncer. Brian was a bouncer.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, that's the thing.
No,
is, like,
I just was walking along, Cody. I'm just a vigilante.
that was
I'm
really
Batman.
Yeah, I remember that.
God damn it.
But that's the whole point, too, is, like, being a woman, be able to come up to a fight between two guys and
Yeah.
just, like, stepping in the between.
Yeah.
They're not going to, like,
Right.
you know, and I was able to calm them down a little
Bring
bit
that
more.
threat level down.
Oh, yeah.
That also doesn't, like, that's not a thing in craft beer you deal with often. You deal with entitlement. I also, again, managing a brewery. So I manage a brewery in Logan Square and a brewery in Naperville, which are wildly different crowds.
Yes.
Logan Square is like industry people. Like, that's what they're dealing with. And these people are, like, tipping them. They're taking care of them.
Yeah.
Also, safety issues can be weird, though. We have people who are houseless, sleeping in our bathrooms sometimes. We got people who are leaving our space at weird times of night that we have to be careful of.
Yeah.
Naperville doesn't deal with that. And so we have to be like, hey, be patient, be calm, be cool, be collected, and
Oh, the
understand.
training of our staff is so different
Man,
now than ever
It really
before.
is. Like, and that's, I think that's a big part of it, too, is like 8 years ago, I mean, I worked for microphones, so I could be like, whatever, we got to line out the door.
Yeah.
And now I have to be like, hey, we got to be patient sometimes and understand that, be respectful. Don't let anyone disrespect us, but understand, think at the end of the day, we're just trying to sell beer.
Yeah.
If I can quote the great Patrick Swayze in Roadhouse,
Oh,
be,
my God.
be nice till it's time to not be nice.
I
Absolutely.
thought you'd be taller.
I thought you'd be taller.
How much of this am I allowed to use?
that quote right there. I thought you'd be taller.
Just that last 30 minutes, I just had to cut, and then just the Patrick Swayze coat. All right.
Absolutely.
I keep saying I want to do like so I do have a lot with our event.
We're still rolling. I just want you to know this is still a podcast. Are we good? Are we
we're
good?
good.
No,
we're
I mean
good.
we're
I
good.
didn't name anyone.
No, you can keep going. I
Cody
just
charges $1,500 in edit.
Cool. Good luck, Cody. Wish you the best. You won't survive.
good luck getting anybody to pay that is the
Yeah,
thing.
nobody he can ask for
I
whatever he
wish
wants.
I made that too. It is one of those things like, that was such a good quote. Sometimes it feels like Roadhouse, and it's not. It's
No,
not fist
yeah.
fights, but it feels mentally like Roadhouse. Where you're like, bro, it's just beer. It is just beer.
Yeah.
And also, we want you to support us and be happy about this, but like, man, just have a good time.
Do you ever tell anybody if you have a pet, you better keep it on a leash?
I'm gonna.
You better. I want to see it. Have you ever seen Roadhouse, Cody?
No.
See, he's looking at me with wide eyes
Not
like,
one
what are
or
you
two.
talking
Oh, okay.
I'm
You're
like
lying.
I'm like 8
2 was
years
awful.
old. You know,
Two
I don't know.
nostalgic, but it was not good.
No.
I watched it.
It was
only
not
for the reason-
good.
so
It was
I-
nostalgic, yes.
I'm a big 80s movie fan. Like, I grew up, my parents were very, very young, so I grew up on a lot of 80s movies, and like all of my first crushes were 80s movies. Patrick Swayze, like, near and dear to me.
I know.
And Roadhouse, like, I keep telling John, the owner of Solemn, that I want to throw a Roadhouse themed night at our Chicago bar with like the cage around the lounge.
Yes, the chicken wire.
I like keep telling them like, and like we had a whole themed idea for beers. For no one will steal this, or I'll sue them.
Wow.
No, it's a whole idea, and we keep talking about it because it's like, how do we make it work but make it safe?
Yeah, because I'm coming in with a razor in the tip of my boot.
Yeah, no.
If you have that party, I'm coming in.
Sorry, remind me who the guitarist was? He's incredible.
Jeff Healy.
Blind.
Yeah, Jeff Healy.
Right,
with the slide
who's
guitar.
blind and played. Yeah, and so I was like, well, we can't do it without somebody who can play
A
like
blind
that.
guitarist.
Yeah. Like,
Maybe you hired Jeff Healy.
he's dead. R.I.P.
Oh,
Shout
did he
out.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I should have known that, but I didn't realize he was dead already.
Jeff
After
Healy's dead.
Forward out for Jeff Healy.
R.I.P. Yeah, pouring out for my homie over here. I love that this went to Roadhouse. Like,
Who's
of all
going-
conversations, I didn't think this would lead us to Roadhouse.
And that's where it went.
Everything
And
leads
now,
back to
anytime
Roadhouse.
you guys ask me to do a podcast, I'm like, yeah, can we talk about Roadhouse? So,
We'll just do a Roadhouse episode. Just get drunk and talk about
I
Roadhouse.
went for days
Oh my God,
about
that'd be
80s
amazing.
movies. Like, I could get into it.
Cody sleeps on the upper floor of a barn. I don't know
I
if you
do.
know that.
I do.
That is
On the
a
bar?
Patrick Swayze Roadhouse move.
Yeah. Well,
And his wife is a doctor.
just like mine. But is it like a medical doctor?
Yeah, well, yours
No, she
has
was a vegetarian-
Yours has a
Mine has a
doctorate.
PhD. It's close enough.
PhD, but
Literature,
still, you could-
doctor.
Doctor. Listen, one doctor is good at another doctor.
That's all that matters. As long as there's a doctor to it.
Yeah, so there you go. We've gone full circle, I think.
I think so.
We've gone. Are you kidding? We've gone like figure eight, loop de loop. Like I mean, we've gone.
We're the infinity side.
Yeah, no, this
I
is.
love it.
I have one final question. How does it feel to be
The longest podcast.
so fucking good at representing what you do on this podcast? That's what I want to know.
My favorite thing about what I do personally is that I try not to be. I want to be authentic about everything I do all the time. And that might mean not everyone loves you and not everyone accepts it, but like if you're not authentic about it, who fucking cares?
I love that. I share that with you. I love to be authentic. Typically a little bit fucked up after several.
Also, the best conversations come after a few
Yes,
beers. We
that
all
is
know
very
this as
true.
a human.
Yes.
Like,
You've just witnessed it.
that's it. Like, if we're not a couple beers deep, what are we even doing then?
Yeah.
Why
Why
are
are
we
we
talking about
here?
At
beer?
that point, you're so stiff, it doesn't even matter. Then all of a
Yeah.
sudden, like, okay, you want the juice? I got the juice for you here.
You're like,
This-
and Michelle's gonna take like one. You're gonna like have an overlapped overall, like
Oh, yeah.
one
Hold
shirt
on.
off. Yep, it's like let me
The
tell
juice.
you right now.
Let's go.
I just want to say, like, I know we're releasing this during Women's History Month, but like that almost bothers me because I feel like you shouldn't get a month, right? Like,
Oh, yeah.
Vibes is something we should talk about all year round,
What's really
right?
cool about Vibes though is we started it in December. We brewed this beer in December, and we've had little things happen.
Yep.
So we had the cider blend,
And we blended in
We've
January.
had events
Okay.
happening leading up to it, and they've all been small scale, but like
Yeah.
brew day is huge, release day is cool, but like there's just things that happen along the way, and I think that was the evolution of Vibes. Is like it's gonna keep going, and it's not a thing that only happens once
Bigger,
a year.
better.
It's not Pink Boots because it only happens once a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we want to continue. We want to continue to highlight and feature work like this all year. Like Michelle, your interview came out in January, I believe, and it's not like we reserve 1 month out of 12 for the women in the industry.
We will only talk to women once a year.
Yeah,
Yep.
we
Well, I mean, that's the thing too. Is like we're gonna make sure we partner with the right people. But like, I sent an email out last week where I keep saying, "Hey, I keep thinking I'm gonna wrap this up and say thank you guys." And this project just keeps growing.
Keeps rolling.
There's no way for me to wrap it up because there's this event, this event, this event.
Do you-
show up to it?
Do you ever think now you went from a beer to a beer and a cider? You mentioned earlier that there were some women who work in distilleries.
Yeah.
Do you think a spirit may be in the offing in addition
Yeah.
to a beer and a cider?
I think it can be whatever we want it to be, and also not what I want it to be. I want it to be whatever they want it to be.
Until there's too many votes, then you have to make the
But also,
then you got to
like,
make the call.
again, at the end of the day, it's like we're taking on so much. I'm like, cool,
Yeah.
you want to run with this? I shouldn't say that. Pink Boots was that.
Cut
and
this
I think
again.
at some point, Pink Boots got taken over and people turned it into what they wanted it to be,
Okay.
which has its pros and its cons.
Sure.
I want to serve my community. So if it means my community needs this and this and this, I would be very vocal about it. If they're saying, hey, we're going to take it and run with it with this project, cool, go ahead.
Thanks again to Charlotte Converse and Michelle Foik for joining us. I'm Brian Noonan. Cheers, ladies.
Cheers.
Now fuck off, Cody.
Look at how big this pour is.
Oh, that's so good.